The Hyundai Santa Cruz gets a refresh for the 2025 model year, as well as this new XRT trim. And in this video, I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and then the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as the styling changes for all Santa Cruzes for 2025 here, you see there's a new look up front. Now it's a subtle change. They stuck very closely to the original formula here, but you have some slightly sharper lights there up front and a different look for them than before. And then here for the XRT version, you do have the unique bumpers here and the extra ruggedness of like those tow hooks, a little bit of more rugged cladding compared to a regular Santa Cruz. And you also now get these all-terrain tires on these unique 18-inch wheels with a wrench inspired motif there in those. But I mean, a really, beefy actual all-terrain tire here on these by Continental, and nice, you have that little bit of extra off-road ability here for this XRT trim. That's about as far as it goes though. There's no other extra stuff here to make this any more off-road capable. You still have the all-wheel drive system here in these Santa Cruzes, and all the basics, but nothing too advanced. But anyway, otherwise here, coming down to the sides, it's still the same silhouette as before, though again on XRT you have like the matte black here for the mirrors, and looks a little more rugged, a little less polished than a regular Santa Cruz. Out back there, it's still all the same, but it's really nicely done, having the integrated step in the rear bumper there to easily get into that truck bed, which is a 4-foot truck bed, by the way. And while of course that's not the biggest bed out there even for these unibody trucks, it still is going to be totally practical, totally usable. I really love how these ones in particular have the roll-up cover on the Santa Cruz. That's been one really nice touch for these to keep that bed nice and dry. You also do have the underbed storage there. That's not as deep as the one you get in the Honda Ridgeline, which is massive and really usable, but still a nice little touch to have a nice little kind of trunk to hide things away in. But otherwise that bed has, the tie downs, the lights, various little things there to make it a little more utilitarian, of course, as well. But overall, the Santa Cruz, again, I think was a really good looking little truck already. And so the nice little tweaks here for 25 and the slight bit of extra ruggedness certainly, I think, matches, the vibe. And it's a nice evolution here for the Santa Cruz in general. The interior of the Santa Cruz is the biggest change, honestly, because basically everything on the dashboard here, everything you're facing is all new pretty much. It's the new Hyundai interior. So a lot of these components you see on a lot of other 2024 and 2025 model year Hyundais, but it's a really impressive and great improvement over what you had previously in Santa Cruz, which wasn't bad, but this is certainly nicer. So first thing here you'll see is the steering wheel is new and has an interesting shape where it's a little flatter on the sides here. And it just has a really great 9.3 grip, nice little 10 and 2 notches, some metal little roller wheels here and buttons in addition to some plastic ones as well. But a really nice steering wheel here, little paddle shifters that are metal here on the back. You even have the little driver monitoring sensor here on these top versions that have that smart cruise control system with the driver attention monitoring built in. But then the main star of the show here is these double 12.3-inch screens that are in this curved enclosure, curved screens, and they are really impressive, very high resolution. And the biggest news here is that we finally have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto here with this new software these are running as well. And as far as that screen goes, again, that's the main thing here. It's really easy to navigate everything. The only two little gripes that I have are that in at least all the media vehicles I've been in, the Sirius XM or any kind of radio pages are buried. They're not in the actual menu pages here. You have to hit the media button twice in order to bring up those audio sources and then select satellite radio or whatever you want to select. The other main gripe is that whenever you're doing anything other than listening to music through CarPlay or Android Auto, if you're listening to it through any of the radio sources, it only displays the album art for whatever song is playing and then the channel that is playing, but it doesn't tell you the artist name or the song title. And the only way you can see that is to go to this little thing in the corner and then have it take up the entire screen, and then you can see that. There's no way, even with these little widgets on the right side, there's no way to put it up on there. There's no way to do it aside from just having it dominate the entire screen. Kind of annoying, and that's something that, in the past system, you were able to see that information. Plenty of screen real estate here, and no reason why they couldn't show that stuff. But other than that, going through, the radio stations is fine. Going through navigation, maps, all that stuff works very well. But of course, most people are going to be defaulting to that smartphone integration because that's what everyone's used to. That's what everyone's comfortable with. And that's honestly what works the best most of the time for most people. So great that you have that, now wirelessly integrated. The other screen here, of course, for the gauges is is a really nice display too. It does have some cool customization with the, not only just like the different themes there, which are nice, but you can see whenever you put it up into the sport mode, it'll go to a sportier look there as well. And then in the middle there, it's all the usual stuff you'd see in, you know, any of these partially digital clusters we had in the past from Hyundai. So nothing really new there, but you know, still just a really nice display. I do like that, you know, the themes are able to be adjusted there, so you can have it give off exactly whatever vibe you want. But otherwise, so you have also a completely redesigned HVAC area here. So you have a little row of hard buttons next to a volume and tune knob, which is notable that we have both of those. That's something you don't have, you know, in a lot of vehicles these days. So I love that we have that. And then just your climate controls. And there is some capacitive touch buttons here to turn on your heated seats and stuff, for example, which, you know, maybe some people won't love. It's not that big of a deal because at least you do have a decent amount of hard buttons still. I'm thankful we at least have the physical knobs there to adjust the climate. You also now have USB-C jacks here and also a wireless charging pad that's improved. And so now it has a really nice rubberized surface with brackets. And in my experience with Hyundai wireless charging pads, they are some of the best out there right now. They actually do reliable charging. It's a nice wide surface area. So it actually manages to charge your phone even when the car is moving. And that's something that, again, is really challenging for a lot of manufacturers these days. So I'm glad that Hyundai has figured that out pretty well. Another interesting thing though, a lot of the other 2025 Hyundais now have a steering column mounted gear shifter. This still has the traditional gear shifter here in the middle. I guess they wanted to go for a more traditional vibe for a truck. So that's why this is, I believe, the only Hyundai with this new interior that doesn't have that column mounted shifter. And the only thing I will say is, I mean, it's a nice feeling shifter here, but the button is on the front, and because of the way it's shaped, you kind of just have to use your like middle and ring fingers to like push back on that. It's just a little bit of a strange approach. Typically there's a button by your thumb or your index finger, and so this, you know, having to use your two middle fingers there is just kind of an interesting design touch. But other than that, you know, all the usual buttons and everything else, and all the other main components are the same here for Santa Cruz. So the seats are pretty much the same. We do have the XRT you know, logo there on these ones, and you have the leatherette here that is perforated, but unfortunately there are only heated seats on this one. There's no cooling. We also have no moonroof here on the XRT, no heated steering wheel. A little bit more basic. I believe the Limited will give you some of those features if you'd like them. But still nice, soft, comfortable seats for sure. And they are power on the driver's side, but they are manual on the passenger side. And another thing too that's worth noting is, you know, storage space is, you know, mostly the same. You still have pockets here on the doors. You have, you know, your cup holders in the middle, plus that wireless charging space. You have a center console that's a little padded, but honestly kind of firmer than I would like. But you have, you know, a decent amount of space in there with a little removable tray. But the thing that I really love is this dashboard tray, which is rubberized a little bit. It's fairly smooth, but it does at least have a ridge to it and a few other little dividers there. But, you know, really nice extra spot just to throw stuff up there. I do, though, wish this was a little bit more rubberized so it would hold stuff in better. But you know, still just a nice bonus space. And then as far as the other stuff with Santa Cruz, really the other thing here is the back seat is gonna be the same size, and the back seat is still pretty tight in these. I'd say it's about on par with what you get with the Ford Maverick. So if you were thinking Ford Maverick seems a little smaller, so therefore would maybe be a little tighter, this is to me just as bad. I'm 5'9", I'm sitting behind myself. I have about an inch maybe of legroom to spare there. It's a pretty tight squeeze. So if you don't want to go up to an actual body on frame truck, which also aren't much better with rear legroom, really the best way to get better legroom, especially in these unibody trucks, is to go for a Honda Ridgeline. Now that is about $5,000 more, but that does have the most usable back seat out of most of these trucks, in my opinion. And you know, but I mean, this still works fine as long as the people up front here aren't too tall, or the people in the back for that matter aren't too tall. But you know, it can work, but you know, don't expect it to be super big. You want to go for a full-size truck if you want to have an actually roomy back seat. But yeah, overall though, a really substantial interior refresh here. You know, most companies do a few tiny little things. To have a completely new dashboard is really impressive, and yeah, really nice interior. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Santa Cruz has the new Hyundai key here with the buttons that cut out the Hyundai H logo there. And I mean, it's a little bit of a larger key, but not too bad. And I like this key. So anyway, of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the Santa Cruz. So the first thing you notice is, the nice and small dimensions you have here in the Santa Cruz, where it is, a little smaller than the average, even mid-size, body on frame truck. So it's a little easier just to park and live with. And I don't know, I just really always appreciate, these smaller dimensions, and certainly one of the biggest perks here of these unibody trucks. I mean, visibility is, nice and easy. You have a nice low dashboard and pretty thin A-pillars and all that. Easy to see out of the back, of course, with that, just basic truck kind of view in the back there. But again, you're sitting up higher, it's like an SUV, but not as high as you're typically seeing in an actual body on frame mid-sized truck. But we're gonna go ahead and put it up into the sport mode here, and let's turn down onto this back road and see how it accelerates. And here we go. Pretty responsive, especially in sport mode. And man, this thing flies. It is so quick, and it's a good bit quicker than even the Ford Maverick. So this has a 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, does 281 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque, and that's the motor you get here in this XRT, as well as the Limited. The lower trims still do come with a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. It does 90 less horsepower, and so I mean, this one's punchy. It's like right around a 6 seconds or a 60. I mean, it is properly quick, and it's impressive. But honestly, a lot of people complain in other reviews about the non-turbo one being slow feeling, but it should be right on par with regular crossover acceleration. So, if you don't need the XRT or all the bells and whistles of the Limited, I think going for that base engine's fine. That also gives you a regular torque converter 8-speed automatic transmission, which will be a little smoother than this dual clutch. That is the one thing that's kind of a strange choice, especially for a truck, is the fact that you do have an 8-speed dual clutch automatic. This is the same transmission that Hyundai uses with this motor and basically everything else outside of the Genesis models. And the transmission, thankfully, this week in this vehicle has been perfectly smooth and inoffensive. There's been other times, though, like I was recently in 2024 spending a week with the Santa Fe, and that with this dual clutch and this engine was a little bit rough sometimes with the engagements, a little bit annoying with just having a lot of throttle delay as far as it would really not want to give me a downshift. This vehicle's been totally fine, so it really just comes down to tuning, and they tune each of these cars differently, and I've had no complaints with Santa Cruz. Every time I've put my foot down, it's given me the response that I've wanted out of it. There was one time accelerating up a hill from a stop where the transmission felt like it just took a split second extra to either figure out what gear it wanted to be in or just engage that clutch. But aside from that one instance, it's been flawless this whole week. So I'm really happy to report that, because there's a lot of negative press out there about this transmission, and at least here in the 2025 Santa Cruz, and this one in particular, it's been fine. So definitely take it for a test drive if you're considering one of these. See what you think about it and the one that you're having your hands on physically. But I'm happy with it here in this week, so I'm not going to complain about it. But just know there are some recalls out there for this transmission in other Hyundais, and could be something that could be problematic, depending on how that all works out. But that's really the only thing. Otherwise, it's a really nice driving experience here. So it's pretty smooth and quiet. We're going over a bridge now, so a little noisier at this moment. But this road also is a little bit on the rougher side, but it's just been a really nice thing to live with, again, because of the smaller dimensions, but also just, again, the responsive, peppy engine, the smooth ride, the good handling, the easy visibility. It's just been a really nice companion just to run errands in and do all the basic kind of commuter, daily driver vehicle kind of stuff in this. And it just also feels a little more spacious in here compared to the Maverick, which is a little tighter. And so overall, it just feels like you're driving a crossover, because in many ways you are. This is based on the Hyundai Tucson, and we're coming some corners here that I always take. We do have some traffic here that's going to be going slower, but this isn't a sports car, so there's no need to really push this anyway. We are also on these all-terrain tires on this XRT in particular, which is certainly going to limit your handling a little bit, but they are actually 245 wide tires, so a decent amount of grip here that you have in them, and of course, just the more off-road ready kind of tread blocks there. But I've also been really impressed with the quietness of these tires. In the past, all-terrain tires used to be just really noisy and rough, and this is like totally smooth, totally quiet. If you didn't tell me I was on all-terrain tires, I wouldn't know. They're that well done. And so, yeah, I'm just happy that doesn't detract from the, driving experience here if you go for this XRT version. If you go for regular Santa Cruzes, of course, you'll have regular all-season tires, and, be totally in line with, again, the kind of handling you usually see in something like a Tucson. As far as carb weight goes, these are just over 4,100 pounds, and the suspension uses a multi-link independent rear suspension, and, is plenty sophisticated for something like this, and again, should be totally fine. The one main truck thing to mention, though, about the Santa Cruz is towing. So with the turbocharged motor, you get a tow rating of 5,000 pounds when properly equipped, of course. If you go for the non-turbo engine, you'll go down to a 3,500 pound tow rating for those. And I'm a little iffy about towing because of the dual clutch. That's the only thing. It's rated for 5,000, but I just don't know how well that will impact your dual clutch longevity. I'm sure, again, these have been out for a few years, so there's probably some owner impressions out there online as far as how this holds up, with that kind of a use case. But just keep in mind, 5,000 pounds is going to be your limit, and that's right in line with everything else in the segment. That's what Maverick is rated at for its top tow rating, I believe, and even I think Ridgeline is right around there as well. So right in line with everything else out there, and should be totally fine for this type of buyer. All right, so now we're on the highway here in the Santa Cruz, and I do have the adaptive cruise control system on, and then here in the XRT and the Limited, it's an adaptive cruise control system with lane keeping assist, and it does do the highway drive assist function. So I believe it's just highway drive assist 1.0, but it still does do the gentle nudging, and it does help to keep you in the lane here. And as far as the safety tech in the Santa Cruz, you do have blind spot monitoring, and you have automatic emergency braking, lane keep assist. Those types of things are standard, but this adaptive cruise control system, again, only for XRT and Limited, which is kind of surprising because most other vehicles these days in the mainstream segment are adding an adaptive cruise control as standard. The fact that Santa Cruz still makes you pay extra for it, I guess it's just them trying to keep the base price, lower still. But, still just a little surprising. But again, like Maverick doesn't offer that as standard or anything either. So I guess, for this segment, that is mostly, par for the course these days, although Ridgeline does offer it as standard. But we have another gentle corner here. We're going around, and, okay, let me know it lost track of the road lines, and now it has regained track of the road lines. And the sun is kind of a little bit hard on these road lines sometimes. It's not super clear, but it did a pretty good job there. Hyundai systems in the past is highway drive assist. Other people, it's really good for them, they love it, but for me it's always been hit or miss, and sometimes can be unreliable with its assistance, and has let me go over road lines, for example, in the past, and other Hyundais. This one, though, has been okay here. I haven't done a ton of driving on the highway to, test it a whole lot this week, but, here in my drive here currently, it's doing a pretty good job. Otherwise, though, out on the highway, again, even with this all-terrain tire setup, it's not really that noisy. It's really well done. Fuel economy here for the Santa Cruz is rated at 18 mpg in the city, 26 on the highway, and 21 combined. And in my driving here, I haven't done a ton of driving, not as much as I usually do, but in my driving here so far, I'm averaging 19.5 mpg, which is actually really impressive. That's better than I got last time, because I did have, a pre-refresh Santa Cruz here, and in that one I did a lot of idling that week, so that dropped the average down, but I was getting like less than 17 mpg in that one. So I'm getting, beyond the city rating. Typically, though, regardless of what I'm driving, most of the vehicles I get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating, and here I am getting 1.5 more than the city rating. So I think this motor could potentially overperform those EPA estimates, and I have no problem believing you can get into the 20s with these, with a little more highway driving mixed in there. But yeah, so pretty happy with that. Now, it is worth noting, if you do want the best fuel economy possible, the Ford Maverick does offer the hybrid version, and here for 2025 they also finally have combined the hybrid component with the all-wheel drive components. You can get those two together now finally. And so, if you are worried about fuel economy, I mean, the Maverick, again, has some shortcomings, but it is certainly going to be a lot better on gas compared to this. So just keep that in mind. It's a shame we don't have a hybrid version of the Santa Cruz, considering they have the hybrid components all ready to go in the Tucson. They have the Tucson regular hybrid and a Tucson plug-in hybrid. I don't know why we don't have options for both of those here in this. It'd be kind of a cool differentiator, especially to have that plug-in hybrid, since Ford doesn't offer that. But regardless, just keep that in mind as far as the efficiency goes. The last thing that I mention is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. And as far as pricing goes, these start just under $30,000 here for 2025, starting at $29,895, including destination. This one, as tested, is $41,395 for this XRT, which again is not the top of the line. There is the limited above this, which is a couple grand more. But as far as how this compares to the competition, so the Maverick does still start lower. Even, we don't have pricing for 2025 as of the time of me filming this right now, but pricing for 2024 was well under the starting price of this, with those still starting in the mid 20,000s for the Maverick. And obviously you get less stuff for that money, and again, a little bit of a smaller vehicle and all that. But it's just worth noting, if you're trying to get into a unibody truck, Maverick is still going to be the way to go if you want something that's cheaper and you're just worried about a low price tag. And so it really just comes down to what are you after. I think that, again, this is a little more spacious, but this has a little bit of a smaller bed, a little less trucky, I would say, than the Maverick in a way. So compared to that, it's kind of a wash. It just comes down to exactly what your priorities are and all that. Maverick obviously is very popular. It does sell better than this does. So, it's definitely something to consider if you are, shopping a Santa Cruz. The other one, though, really, as far as unibody trucks to consider, is the Honda Ridgeline, which is technically one size up. It's a more of a mid-size truck versus it's kind of being compact, at least for the basis of the platform, being based on the compact Tucson, versus Ridgeline, being based on the Pilot, the mid-size SUVs from Honda. So with the Ridgeline, it is about $5,000 more expensive, but that $5,000 gets you a V6, which actually has less torque than this, and just barely matches it on horsepower roughly. So no real extra power advantage, but you do have the traditional V6 engine, a traditional torque converter automatic, and like I said, the main selling point is the fact that you're going to have a bigger back seat, a bigger bed, again, more of that in-bed storage. You even have the cool swing out option with the Ridgeline, tailgate, that it can do that. And so, Ridgeline, I'd say, is a better all-around vehicle. It's a better truck. It's also a better just daily driver because of the extra space. The downside is Ridgeline is very dated, and as of the time of me filming this, there is no word on when we will see a new Ridgeline, but we've been getting, we just got the new Passport, the new Pilot, a year or so ago for that, and so a Ridgeline should be coming soon for a new one, so keep that in mind. You might want to hold off for the new version, which should have some nicer improvements. But current Ridgeline, still has a smaller screen, doesn't have digital gauges, just way, far behind these next-gen interiors, even compared to the Maverick interior with its bigger screen these days and stuff. So $5 grand more, and you have a downgrade on the inside, but again, if space or truck capabilities or that V6 reigns supreme, and that's worth paying the upcharge for, Ridgeline is certainly a good option as well. And one of my good friends owns a Ridgeline. It really loves it, so they do seem to be really well liked in the community, not only from his experience but from others I've heard from as well. So another great option there with the Ridgeline. But there's really no wrong answer here, but I just gotta say that I'm happy that Hyundai has a competitor, because when Maverick first came out, we were assuming that everyone was gonna want to do a competitor to this, and here we are a few years later, and basically no one has a competitor to this outside of Hyundai. They were the ones that decided to throw their hat in the ring here and compete with the Maverick, and I really respect them for getting out a competitor so quickly and also improving it here for 2025 so quickly with this brand new interior here, and some really nice enhancements. This XRT version is a great addition, and just another example of Hyundai really competing very well, not only just with matching feature content, but matching with appeal, and trying to one up the competitors in the ways that they can. And I think that the Santa Cruz is a really well done little vehicle. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2025 Santa Cruz. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Hyundai for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.